Hey, primates! Links to the video we reacted to today are in the description below. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell to be notified whenever we go live or put out new content. It really helps us out. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show! He was the Mandela catalog. I'm wrong. I am wrong. He did the Mandela catalog. Which I am a big fan of. Actually, though, we have reacted to all the videos on the stream. And well, there's still some more videos, but we'll go ahead and check that out later. Not now. For now, I kind of want to see what happened and why he got these accusations, and it may be that they may not have been true. Let's go ahead and check out the video, my dudes. I'm going to go ahead and share this video on the Discord. I'm going to drop a like. Let's do it. And let's go. Let's see what is going on with Alex.
Against YouTubers are becoming more common, right? Like every month, at least one huge creator is revealed to be a monster that ruins lives. But what's also becoming increasingly common is YouTubers actually clearing their names, either by disproving their accusers or reframing their claims in a far more sympathetic context. And right now, the internet is split on where Alex Kister currently falls on that spectrum. I mean, between his accusations and response, we're looking at over 100 pages of writing, screenshots, and links. So let's face it, only someone with absolutely no life could even begin making sense of this, and that's where I come in to try and make heads or tails of the case against Alex Kister. Now,
He's just like me for real.
Alex is a huge YouTuber best known for making analog horror content, with the Mandela catalog being his best known project. And this content has served Alex well, gaining him tens of millions of views and nearly 1 million subscribers.
Gemini as well? Home Entertainment? I freaking love that series.
What happened? Well, this all started on March 12th, when Alex's ex-partner Ven posted an almost 70-part document detailing a pattern of Alex's behavior, described as predatory and manipulative. More specifically, Ven sought to prove that Alex was using his platform and fame as a means to manipulate and hurt his fans. And it wasn't long before Alex responded with an even longer document on March 24th, a document where Alex lays out his argument that Ven lied by omission, contradicted themselves, and has made several admissions that prove that this document was a premeditated attempt to ruin his career. So let's start trying to make sense of this. Now, it's important to note that Ven is writing this document on behalf of a group of people that had interacted with Alex throughout 2023, a group that Ven had assembled and was leading. And the members of this group largely fall into two categories. In the first are Ven and DB, who both briefly dated Alex and happened to be a year older than him, and the rest are teens that Alex had befriended on several servers about analog horror. It's also crucial to note that everyone in this group was a fan of Alex's when he had met them, a fact he was always aware of. And Ven starts by explaining that this group's primary goal is to warn others of their experiences with Alex in order to prevent future victims. Ven also claims that steps were taken privately to address Alex's behavior, but he failed to improve, which is why they're going public. Though, as you're going to see, it is a lot more complicated than that. Now, Alex's introduction largely claims that Ven's—
Yeah, because right off the bat, that sounds pretty bad. The fact that you're an adult man talking to 14 to 17-year-olds, you know?
Allegations range from unreliable to maliciously deceptive. For example, he points out that many of Ven's screenshots are presented as definite proof of a loosely related claim, despite the connection being vague at best. Alex also expresses that Ven repeatedly crossed the line throughout their document by unnecessarily exposing intimate parts of his life. This includes his medical history, sexual history, experiences with therapy, and venting in confidence, and that these topics are not relevant to the claims of misconduct, so he wishes not to address them and instead focus on the accusations of him being—
Yeah, you can't just, in certain states, there are laws that protect your medical history, your medical information, and it could be a big problem if somebody doxes that or reveals that.
Destructive towards others. Alex also points out recklessness and potential deception on Ven's part at several points. For example, Ven posted links to over 300 screenshots of various people's conversations with Alex. However, the file hosting website contained explicit ads for adult entertainment, despite the many minors who are likely clicking these links.
Would you like to meet older woman who lives nearby? Yo, what the was that? Okay, dude, no, we're done opening images. We're done opening images.
Not to mention that these screenshots are often cropped in fairly suspicious ways, including in the middle of a message or even a sentence. Alex also states that as a result of Ven's recklessness, rumors are now spreading of Alex being attracted to children, despite him only having charged conversations with people that are older than him. Lastly, when Ven was writing their document, they attempted to gain validity and authority by claiming to have worked with a lawyer who wrote an explanation for how Ven's actions could not legally be considered defamation, defamation. However, Alex explains why they don't believe that this lawyer exists at all. For one, their quote was actually ripped almost verbatim from a legal website, Justica. Also, Ven makes the
Yeah, and like I said, there are laws that protect your medical history. This could absolutely be considered defamation or doxing.
confusing assertion that defamation is impossible since
If
their
it's not
actions
true,
are
that
rooted
is.
in anger, not malice. But Ven has repeatedly said that they wanted to ruin Alex, not to mention that anger and malice are not at all mutually exclusive. So yeah, Alex and Ven both hit the ground running, but what exactly happened between them to warrant such hostility? Well, Ven explains that they were in a relationship with Alex from April to June of 2023, when Alex was 19 and Ven was 20. And while Ven found the experience to be a positive one at the time, looking back, they now feel differently. Now, according to Ven, Alex would joke about taking his own life due to paranoia at their private conversations being leaked or the idea of Ven leaving, which made them begin to feel responsible for Alex. Ven then detailed Alex speaking to them in a sensually explicit manner that Ven was uncomfortable with. However, both Alex and Ven state that at the time, Ven was verbally consenting to this, and Alex even claims that they were encouraging it. But it goes even further. Remember how Ven was criticized for cropping screenshots in suspicious ways? Well, they admitted in a now deleted Tumblr post that this was often to remove the instances of Alex's behavior being reciprocated. And that's kind of a trend throughout both Ven and DB's recollections of dating Alex, where they would often act in ways that were opposite how they were allegedly feeling. And on the rare occasion where they would verbalize a problem, Alex would actually be very receptive to it. But Ven and DB repeatedly argue that their verbal consent is irrelevant. See, there's one key difference between
Consent? What do you mean their verbal consent is irrelevant? Verbal consent is consent.
Ven's side and Alex's that will likely shape who people agree with, and that's their views on the power wielded by content creators. Ven's arguments largely hinge on the idea that a creator's power permeates in all of their interactions with anyone familiar with their status, meaning if an interaction has the potential to be harmful, it is on the creator in question to avoid it altogether. But Alex argues that this power dynamic is irrelevant unless he actively abuses it. He also claims that it's even less relevant when talking about his relationships with Ven and DB, as they're both older than him and have never accused him of exploiting his position of power. For example, at one point Ven agreed to being friends with benefits with Alex despite deeply fearing a romantic partner objectifying and using them. So Ven asserts that Alex should never have put them in this position, whereas Alex says that he can understand where he may have misstepped, but it's unfair for Ven to use him not being a mind reader as evidence of him being predatory just because he has subscribers. Ven
Yeah, you could just say no to wanting to date him, dude. What do you mean? Like,
then describes how Alex exhibited paranoia during their breakup at the idea of Ven leaking their intimate messages with others or the public, which I have to say is kind of ironic when you consider that in both the past and the present, Ven says that these fears were irrational while doing exactly what Alex was afraid of. Like, Ven even leaked them reassuring Alex that they would not leak their conversations. They even told Alex these fears warranted therapeutic intervention, which he listened to and was put on meds. And Ven doesn't even allege that Alex wanted these messages gone to cover up any abuse. It's literally just a matter of privacy. Like, having read Ven's description and Alex's messages, it really reads to me as Alex wanting to maintain a connection, but recognizing that Ven saw some of his low points, and as a YouTuber that can be used against him. Though, depending on which side of the power dynamic argument you fall, that might just be a moot point. Ven goes on to paint a picture of what their friendship with Alex looked like after formally breaking up. This included disclosing various parts of Alex's mental health and treatment, which Ven feels is fair to disclose since they forced them to act as his emotional crutch, making their friendship one-sided. But Ven also says that when Alex would reciprocate this effort, they wouldn't answer out of frustration, so do with that what you will. Ven also expresses that they were being led on by Alex and that his messages would imply that they were working back towards a relationship, even though Alex had no such intention. Alex responds to this by saying he reconnected with Ven in hopes of being friends, but it wasn't made clear that they still wanted more, and had he known, he would have understood and acted accordingly. And again, both Alex and Ven point out that, at the time, Ven was assuring him that he wasn't doing anything wrong. And that's a really important trend to point out with this situation. Despite Ven trying to establish that Alex is predatory, there's nothing to suggest that he wouldn't respect clearly communicated boundaries. In fact,
I mean, you can't really get mad at him if you don't set any boundaries, and you get mad at him for not having boundaries. Like, you need to speak up.
the opposite. Like the one time Ven did sort of set a boundary, Alex took it very personally and listened. But when it was all said and done, Ven was left with very negative feelings towards Alex, and it was one of their rants about him that would actually connect them to DB. See, Alex had met DB on a server he would use to connect with fans, though I'll touch on that more later. But for now, Ven and DB got in touch once the latter had developed mutual feelings for Alex and came across Ven ranting about him on social media. It was at this point that DB reached out because they were having doubts about their involvement with Alex and wanted to hear Ven's experience. Ven goes on to paint a similar picture of DB's relationship with Alex to their own, where Alex's actions towards DB were practically all verbally consensual, but that doesn't matter since DB was a fan. And Alex responds to this in much of the same way as before, first pointing out that Ven includes details and phrases that paint him as sinister but were actually irrelevant or unsubstantiated, such as saying that when Alex was initially talking to DB, he didn't know their appearance or voice, but at that time they were just talking with no other motives. Ven also alludes to Alex's true intent, thus further painting him as predatory, but never specifies what that might have been. Alex also argues that Ven painting DB's consent as superficial is nonsense, as he never leveraged his platform to pressure or coerce them. In short, Alex maintains that he's being criticized for not reading minds. Ven also described how things moved quickly between Alex and DB, saying that he was hoping to fast track to a physical relationship, which prompted Alex to share messages showing that DB was actually the one taking the initiative with their relationship, being the first
I mean, those are some pretty good receipts, actually, though.
to confess feelings and to suggest meeting up. And if you remember, Ven says they just wanted to remove when they and DB would reciprocate Alex's advances, but this is an example of Ven hiding behavior that goes beyond simple reciprocation. Alex then argues that much of what Ven is attempting to describe as exploitative was normal for him to do with someone he was officially dating. This includes kink-shaming him for just talking to his partner lustfully, as well as labeling moments of Alex showing simple affection as love bombing. Also, Alex claims that once DB expressed that things were moving too fast, he stopped having physically charged conversations with them until DB eventually ghosted him. And this is the start of a really weird pattern. See, for everyone that has a falling out with or turns against Alex, Ven is heavily involved. Like in this case, Ven had actually encouraged DB to ghost him after convincing them that Alex was just using them, which caused Alex
This is starting to paint a wildly different picture than what Ven wants to be shown. This is starting to paint a picture where Ven is just a very vengeful girlfriend.
to enter what Ven calls a manic state, desperately messaging DB for forgiveness and contacting Ven for reassurance of what was going on. And Ven specifically chose to ignore Alex and leave him with no answers about DB's disappearance. And yeah, unsurprisingly, Alex had a lot to say about this, namely the fact that Ven had posted a vague threat on their story shortly before this went down. And to go from discussing boundaries with DB and arriving at a mutual understanding to being entirely ghosted in light of that threat is what caused Alex's panic. In fact, Alex went so far as to say that Ven was the one manipulating DB and went out of their way to poison the water against him. And yeah, this is where things get ugly. See, there was a 16-year-old Mitcha that Alex had also befriended thanks to the aforementioned server. And during his spiral, Alex actually burdened them with him contemplating taking his own life, which required Mitcha to spend a full 24 hours
Alex, stop freaking telling people you're gonna take your own...
to him and trying to prevent him from hurting himself. And this stress led to Mitcha requiring medical care. And Alex does agree that this was completely unacceptable, but it wasn't manipulation. It was completely genuine because he's had a long-running struggle with self-harm. And here's my
Yeah, but you keep telling every single person you meet, like, apparently.
What Alex did to Mitcha was horrible. He's clearly dealing with severe mental illness and shouldn't be engaging with teenagers, especially ones who look up to him. That's an incredibly delicate dynamic, and regardless of intention, it's clearly not something that Alex can handle. But I do want to point out something about this that is just bugging me, which is that Ven had a huge hand in making this happen, even if unintentional. At this point in time, Ven knew that Alex was being treated for mental illness and was not doing well with his meds. Ven knew that Alex had access to a lot of teenagers who were especially vulnerable. Ven also felt like Alex did not know where to draw the line when it comes to emotional dependency, which is a problem considering he's in a position where he can do a lot of harm. So with all of that in mind, Ven was the one that convinced DB to ghost Alex. Knowing this was happening, Ven chose to post a vague threat where Alex would see it. And then once he's panicking, Ven specifically chooses to ignore him and just let him unravel. Like, I'm not saying that Ven had to spend hours talking to Alex, but if you see this is because his significant other is suddenly missing, why would you not just say, they're okay, they need space, and will contact you when and if they are ready. Please just give them some time. Like, not only were they behind his trigger, but they went out of their way to make it worse twice while knowing the extent
Yeah,
of
this seems very vengeful, spiteful on Ven's side.
mental illness. Like, I'm not trying to shift the responsibility that is on Alex here, but is it not insane how much of this only happened because Ven clearly wanted something to? And look, I'm not saying that they're responsible for Alex just because he's dealing with mental illness.
Not. No,
in general, I wouldn't judge someone.
But Alex's actions are his own, but it's interesting how Ven is really trying, like, really has Alex living rent-free in her head and keeps trying to insert herself into his life.
Disengaging with someone whose mental health hurts them, but I absolutely have something to say about someone who goes out of their way to weaponize someone's mental health in order to make them look bad, especially someone who is actively seeking help. But whatever. Alex points out that Ven tries to justify their ongoing approach with Alex by saying he had traumatized and left DB behind, and this left Ven enraged. But again, DB was the one to ghost Alex, who was actively trying to maintain their relationship, and DB didn't find their interactions with Alex traumatic until talking to Ven. Now, if you remember, I had mentioned that Alex had met DB and Mitcha on some server. See, he would engage with a server that Ven moderated about analog horror, and as a viral creator in this niche, Alex was quickly connected with many fans, many of whom were teens. He then started personally befriending them in various places, namely the server, a separate group chat, and via DMs. It was during this time that Alex started gradually opening up about his gender identity, despite not doing so publicly. And Ven's depiction of this topic actually received a ton of backlash and accusations of transphobia. Because yeah, Ven's argument is kind of strange, and it's incredibly important to understand the exact line they draw on this topic. See, most if not all of the people involved in this situation have some level of transgender or gender fluid identity. In fact, it was Ven's document that made it public that Alex also had such an identity, so that already caused a lot of criticism, though Ven has maintained that since Alex was alluding to his identity in a public server, that was fair game. But on that topic—
Nah, son, you don't out somebody else like that. What do you mean? Like, it doesn't matter how he does or eludes or whatever the frick, that's not your story to tell.
Ven basically maintains that it is inappropriate in any context for an adult to talk to a teenager about gender identity or sexuality. They do not argue that it's problematic because it's Alex who's not in a place to handle that responsibility. It's just predatory for any adult to do. And it's a really weird point to use to portray Alex as being predatory, in my opinion. Especially when you consider that, at the time, Alex was a teenager himself.
Don't get me wrong. Wait, he was a teenager? Because the reason why I'm saying this is, like, regardless, like, an adult should not be privately DMing any freaking minors.
More specifically, this was happening from when he had just turned 19 to when he was 20. And if I'm being honest, I feel very differently about a trans teen reaching out to other teens than, say, a 30-year-old.
Yeah, no,
you can absolutely argue that his messages are
painted,
sometimes weird, given
they
his
definitely tried to. That sounds like they definitely tried to paint that way differently.
Position as a creator, but predatory? I don't know, man. That feels like a reach. Now, look, I'm not part of the LGBTQ+ community, so I'm not trying to have a hot take here, but this sentiment from Ven has been echoed by the teens who have come forward, and it's confusing for me because this is the exact opposite from what I've been hearing from the larger community, that it's important to provide safe spaces for queer kids to express and come to terms with their identities because they often don't have one. Don't those safe spaces almost always have to be provided by adults? I'm not saying that I think Alex was the right person to create this space. Honestly,
yeah, but he wasn't even that much of an adult. He was 19, 30, 20.
His burdening Mitcha with a mental health crisis proves that he couldn't handle this responsibility. But these people aren't saying Alex was the wrong person to do this because of his own issues. Because remember, the primary intention of this document is not to warn of Alex's mental illness, but to prove that he's knowingly being predatory, especially to teens. And nearly everything about his interactions with teens hinges on the idea that these topics are inherently predatory to discuss, not that he specifically was discussing them in a predatory way, which sounds a lot like the right-wing talking point where introducing children to the idea of sexuality and gender identity in any fashion is grooming. And the only attempts to make the claims at all specific to Alex just hinge on Ven saying that
this is a wild comparison to the "Don't Say Gay" bill, you know, like freaking A. She really put herself in the alignment with Christina Pashaw over here.
He is talking about clothing in any fashion, it is in a sexual way, which, like, they really haven't laid out enough to say that definitively, in my opinion. So I'm being completely genuine. I do not understand the disconnect here and wanted to point that out. But if I am missing something here, I'm totally open to any members of the community showing me some grace in the comments and explaining what I'm not getting. Because I'm just confused by how much of this push against Alex hinges on this argument. And Alex responds to all of this by saying that Ven vaguely alludes to his conduct being inappropriate, but fails to actually give a specific instance where he was outside of his actions with Mitcha during the aforementioned episode. He also argues that while Ven repeatedly accuses him of encouraging parasocial connections, because these friendships were mutual, parasocial was not the appropriate word and was instead being used as a buzzword. Ven also argues that Alex discussing gender identity with this chat was making some uncomfortable and at times even insulted, and that this power dynamic was the perfect demonstration of his predatory nature, as this chat included teens talking about a very personal and vulnerable topic. But as Alex points out, these are all just vague claims where you really only have Ven's word both for how a group of people felt and for what Alex's intentions were. And while he admits to dating 2 of his adult fans, he doesn't think that's enough to label his intent in—
Okay, keyword there. He dated 2 of his adult fans. Adult.
these chats as predatory or—
I still feel very weird about those kinds of power dynamics, but at the end of the day, if you're a freaking YouTuber, where the frick else are you gonna meet people, you know? Except for other people in the community, so to speak. But it's like, it's still a very weird dynamic between creator and fan, you know? At the end of the day, it is something genuinely every single creator should learn to have boundaries on and respect, you know?
malicious. And once again, because Ven is primarily relying on intent, which is almost impossible to prove, you can read this either way. For example, Ven presents a message of Alex telling Mitcha that he's starved for physical affection and presents it as Alex trying to date a 16-year-old, though Alex argues that the message in question wasn't sexual, nor was it aimed at said 16-year-old, saying the message was a little weird to say, but not a crime, predatory, or even flirting in any way. Ven also revealed that Alex played with the idea of going by Amelia within the server. However, he suddenly changed his mind and played it off as a joke, which apparently offended some of the server's members. Also, at different points, Alex referred to feminine names as being his alter egos, which Ven takes issue with. More specifically, Ven kind of applies a one-size-fit-all approach to trans identity by using this language to seemingly cast doubt on the validity of Alex's trans identity. Basically, they don't think that this language applies to being trans, so Alex shouldn't either, which unsurprisingly, some people took issue with and even pointed to this being another example of Ven being transphobic, though Alex claims that he played off Amelia as a joke because he was still insecure about using this name and was uncomfortable at the idea of it causing conflict. Though he also points out that this whole topic is fairly unnecessary to bring up as it shows him technically lying but not being predatory. Now, it's important to lay out these other people that have come forth about Alex, because hearing that 8 people have come forward, many of whom are teens, that's usually a death sentence for one's career, so how exactly does Alex still have defenders? Well, several of those teens and young adults also came out and released their own Twitter threads talking about their experiences with Alex. For example, Mitcha explained that when they were 16 and Alex 20, they formed a connection much like what Alex described from his servers, connections that stemmed from—
Now that is a pretty weird age. If this went anywhere relationship-wise, sexual-wise, that's a pretty big gap for me.
from a desire to befriend his fans. However, Mitch describes his friendship as incredibly one-sided, where Alex would often dump emotional needs on Mitcha but wouldn't reciprocate support. And at various points, Alex would enthusiastically compliment their clothing in ways that weren't sexual but still made Mitcha uncomfortable. Mitcha then alludes to Alex grooming or being otherwise sexually interested in them, though it is worth noting that Ven specifically drew the line short of there. And with clothes in general, it's important to note that Ven revealed that Alex had quite a fixation on clothing, a fixation that, with romantic partners, would also be lustful in nature. Now, Alex had also been vocally supportive and encouraging.
I don't know about that. Like, I'm super into clothing, but that doesn't mean I'm like it's sexual in nature. I just think that men's clothing and men's attire is so freaking boring because every guy just wears a freaking, like, you know, jeans and a shirt. Never anything unique. Not like the way ladies have like unique dresses, unique outfits, unique shoes, unique, you know, you can match it with your purse, you know, all kinds of stuff.
His fans were experimenting with gendered clothing, even expressing envy at times. But these teens do not allege that any explicit messages were sent to them, nor did the messages seem inappropriate at the time. In fact, it wasn't until Ven told them about Alex's lustful fixation on clothing while in relationships that they became uncomfortable, seemingly based on the assumption that for Alex to find this topic so sensual in one context, it meant that him talking about clothing could only mean he was doing so to derive inappropriate pleasure from these teens. And that same caveat has been applied to Alex's aforementioned conversations on gender identity, where multiple people said that they had no issue with these conversations until Ven made them aware of Alex's intentions. Like, he wasn't saying anything bad, but Ven approached them and told them that when Alex was saying X, it was actually because of Y. In fact, Ven described getting in touch with the members of Alex's group chats and dumping everything on them. The problem is, the entire foundation of this narrative from Ven is based on the fact that they had a negative experience with Alex. But despite how flimsy that is, they now have been thrusted into public scrutiny and have described how damaging this experience has been for them. Like, one of the accusers, Vaughn, talks about how Ven bringing this to their attention caused Vaughn to spiral and relive old traumas, and Ven's instructions to say nothing about this made that all the more taxing. But they were just fine beforehand. There was also a young adult who expressed that because they have autism, they were unable to understand that Alex was using them, and they never would have had Ven not brought it to their attention. Like, I have my issues with Alex here that I'll get into more later, but I do find it weird that, other than Ven, seemingly every other accuser had to be convinced that Alex did something inappropriate. Ven and Alex then detail the conversations they had between Alex finding out about Ven's document and its eventual release. Specifically, that Alex became desperate to handle this privately, even saying they would end their life. Though Alex draws the line at this being labeled a threat, saying, "I was told that I was going to have my intimate history leaked and my career ruined. They knew this was my absolute worst fear, and it was used to scare me in a fit of their own anger based on a misunderstanding on their part. I said I was going to because I was going to if I wasn't stopped by family members, but apparently I was the one threatening Ven." And while
Again, bro, you used unaliving yourself as such a freaking weapon. You gotta stop.
Ven talked about Alex expressing betrayal at his server for being turned against him, he actually stands by these remarks, saying, "It is fair for me to feel the amount of betrayal, sadness, and anger I felt seeing friends advocate to make this public ASAP without me even having the chance to defend myself or provide my side of the story." Not to mention, this all happened because Ven leaked his information to the server out of anger by their own admission. The ones in there that deserved an explanation were the few that cared to reach out to me personally. Those are my real friends, not the ones who treat me perfectly well until one bad accusation is said about me and proceeds to immediately advocate for my cancellation online. Ven then talks about a few instances of Alex making inappropriate jokes in a video stream, which Alex admits, yeah, was a lapse in judgment given the likely presence of minors, though draws the lines of labeling it predatory. And after posting their document, Ven took to Tumblr to make a follow-up statement. And interestingly, they justify possibly outing Alex by calling him a groomer, despite Ven repeatedly saying that they aren't calling him one, including during that very Tumblr post. But here's the thing, between Ven, Alex, and the other accusers, there are over 100 pages of documents and over 300 screenshots that I had to download individually, which was really fun. So of course, rumors have started spreading about everyone, mainly rumors of parties being child likers and groomers, especially Alex. Now, Ven did say on Twitter that these rumors are false and not their doing, but they also spread the same rumors on Tumblr, so do with that what you will. But Alex specifically came out and disavowed anyone spreading false rumors in an effort to defend him, and Alex himself was actually doxxed during this situation. But that's where we are.
Alex got doxxed on top of all of that because freaking A, dude.
Now, and as for Alex and Ven has claimed that they intended to respond, but are yet to. However, they expressed that Alex's document was actually a win for them as it confirmed their story. But in spite of that, Alex has actually stopped losing subscribers and is in fact gaining again, which is a very quick turnaround for a situation like this. Though despite Ven promising their response to Alex's document weeks ago, nothing of note has been said since.
Yeah, because she kind of didn't really have a whole lot of evidence to prove any of her side. She really was just hoping people would run with the story, huh?
In fact, their Twitter was almost entirely inactive for quite a while. However, on April 6th, they tweeted at one of Alex's most vocal supporters wishing to speak via DMs, so they may be coming out with something soon. It's also worth noting that several of Alex's collaborators for the Mandela catalog had distanced themselves following the original allegations, and that seems to be sticking. And Mitya has gone back and forth between making various other statements and privating their Twitter, but again, it really wasn't anything particularly substantial when it comes to Alex. And having gone through all of this, you you can probably tell I have a lot of thoughts here, which, yeah, is putting it lightly. From
But
what I've
Alex messed up here a lot. But I just don't feel like the accusations have any, if at all, if any at all, evidence, especially not good evidence, of anything at all. Besides this dude being in a bad mental place.
People who should not have large platforms that feature their personal lives. And while I do think there are multiple places here that Alex needs to do better, I also think it's pretty clear that his behavior stemmed from desperation and mental illness that he's working on treating. So while both him dating two older fans and him talking to teens in a personal manner was inappropriate, I don't see the predator angle. Like, his actions do kind of make sense when you consider he was a 19-year-old who gained a huge following overnight, was questioning his identity, and found others with similar experiences, and is dealing with severe mental illness. Add in the fact that he seems to be a lonely dude, and yeah, I can see how he wasn't handling this responsibility as well as one might hope. More than anything, I think Alex just needs to continue his mental health treatment and find some friends offline. Like, while I think the potential harm here was massive, in practice, I don't think the harm is nearly as bad as Ven is portraying, considering most, if not all of these accusers were fine until Ven entered the picture. And the one thing I would say was absolutely unacceptable was Alex putting Mitcha in the position that he did, which he has taken accountability for. Though that brings me to Ven. Obviously, Ven developed very negative feelings towards Alex, and whether it comes from genuine concern or bitterness, I can't say for sure. However, I do think Ven's behavior towards very vulnerable people, including Alex, has been disgusting. I honestly believe that at some point, Ven realized if the right buttons were pushed, Alex's mental health would push him over the edge. And in order to prove the harm that he could do in such a scenario, Ven made sure to push those buttons whenever possible. Like, if we remove Ven from this equation entirely, nothing happens. DB doesn't become so bad like their interactions with Alex.
That's a very freaking interesting point to make, absolutely. It seems like she has her hand in everything here, bro. This is like the epitome of a freaking spiteful ex-girlfriend. Freaking A.
Or do they become afraid of him?
How's it going,
DB never
guys?
ghosts him, so he never goes to Mitchell and wants him to take his own life. Without
Just
Ven,
in time,
these teens
we're
aren't
checking out,
to believing that he was using them for lustful purposes.
We were checking out the end of Battlefield 2042 earlier, my dude. Freaking A.
Alex also
they got one more
spiral
season
again
left.
Once threatened with Ven's document.
We should play it at some
A
point.
lot of Alex's behavior only became a problem for these people.
And after that, they're never gonna
Ven
make any more Battlefield
recontextualized their
2042.
interactions. And because of the events that Ven kicked off, Alex almost took his own life twice, and Mitcha almost did once. And the other accusers have also been going through a lot. Like, Vaughn described how Ven approaching them caused them to relive the trauma of being exploited when they were younger. And what's worse is that they talk about Ven like they were doing a good deed. Like, do I think that if left unchecked, Alex would have eventually hurt someone?
How telling is it that I told you Battlefield 2042, it's gonna have one final season and then no more, and that we should play it, but your instant reaction is like, dude, that game sucks. Battlefield 1, let's go. You're not wrong, though. Battlefield 1 sounds really fun.
Yeah, if his treatment wasn't working,
if you're down, I'm down to play that on stream too, or just on stream. It's up to you.
I really feel like Ven was the one to cause this pain in order to prove what Alex was capable of at his worst. But had more time gone by, Alex might have gotten far enough in his treatment that it never would have happened. But now we'll never know. And their language, if you really pay attention to it, is so deceptive. Like them doing the lip service of saying that they aren't accusing Alex of something despite doing exactly that. Also, the vast majority of Ven's claims about Alex use either Ven's feelings or Ven stating Alex's intention as evidence, both in the document but also behind the scenes. And for the teams that came out against Alex, again, they were not bothered by
I'm sorry, this doesn't really go beyond trust me, bro, on Ven's side.
Interactions until a 21-year-old suddenly told them, hey, he was actually a child like your, trust me bro, he used you. So of course they now feel disgusting, and of course they're aiming that at someone they were convinced violated them. Does that not sound like a 21-year-old manipulating and arguably traumatizing a bunch of vulnerable individuals for their own gain? Like, it is insane how universally the people coming out about Alex end up saying some variation of, I didn't know these interactions were weird until Ven said that Alex's motivation is predatory, so I feel violated now based on that context. And look, I would not personally engage with viewers in the way that Alex did for a multitude of reasons. fact. I especially
Agreed.
wouldn't date any of them because of how easily that can become an issue without realizing, or hell, even framed as one out of spite. But for Alex talking about gender identity, the only evidence to suggest he was being predatory is that Ven decided he was. I don't know, I feel like it's reasonable enough that a 19-year-old struggling with their identity might find comfort in connecting with others of a similar age who are going through the same thing. Also, Ven repeatedly admitted that this was personal for them, that they wanted the satisfaction of taking Alex down. Not to mention that their social media behavior since coming out about this is just so weird to me. Ven also makes a claim of Alex admitting to wanting to run away and bury his troubling behavior by saying they wanted a fresh start, but Alex released a message that proved that Ven was lying about this confession, where Ven verbalizes that
Yeah, she turns out to be lying about a lot of things. Like this, she's not a very trustworthy source here, so to speak.
Alex was actually planning to reevaluate how they interact with others and step back from the server. There's also the fact that Ven ridicules Alex for being paranoid about privacy while validating that fear and leaking unrelated personal information. This just feels like an
his
echo of the
medical
Superman
history
situation, where I'm like, yeah, I get why you have issues with this person and are hurt, but this is so blatantly just a personal crusade. And what makes it worse for me is that Ven could have easily approached this from the perspective of making the public aware that Alex is struggling with mental illness that makes him emotionally codependent on people and is seeking companionship from his fans, and that it would not be healthy for a viewer to connect with him while he's in this place. Not only would I understand that a lot more, but I would actually argue that that would be an accurate statement. But Ven has gone out of their way to turn this into wanting to prove that he's evil and needs to be chased off the internet. And when Alex wasn't giving enough proof of this, Ven went out of their way to make him. And as far as the public perception goes, this feels a lot like the Dream situation, where people see a document with dozens of pages from multiple people and go, okay, so the accusations must be true for there to be that much to say. But this dude just strikes me as someone who needs to stick to making his platform about his art and keep himself out of it. Also, Ven had explained that Alex was seeking various methods of treating his mental illness, but that this treatment wasn't 100% successful right away. Which, like, I'm not a psychologist, but isn't that how treatment usually works?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
Ben
no,
at
I
one
can tell
point
you, I'm in
says the
therapy,
number of
yeah.
times where Alex promised to change, but then does the opposite. This is the reason why we're choosing to speak out about our experiences, to warn fans and to prevent him from hurting anyone else. He had every opportunity for growth, but decided to hurt people in the process. This behavior is
She says from hurting anyone else. What? Like, I'm not saying a whole lot of hurt. I'm saying very irresponsible conversations
this was all
happening,
within the
but
last
not
12 months,
not to the
including
degree she's
Alex
making it
starting to
seem
seek
like.
treatment. Also, Ven straight up messaged Alex saying they specifically wanted to ruin him. Quote, I am gonna make sure you are not gonna have a career anymore. With Ven later saying, I'm gonna make sure this guy is never liked by anyone again. But for now, that's really all there is to say about this. So if you'll excuse me, I just found out that my ex is having a mental health crisis, so I wanna make sure I give them what they need to get through this, you know? What, I'm just following Ven's example. Bye!
Freaking A, dude. Wow. Alright, I'm glad I looked into this because
Hello, guys and
it's
gals.
definitely... Alright, chill. We're gonna check this one out later.
It feels like accusation.
I'm so glad I looked more into it. Jimmy Robbins, I'm gonna subscribe. Thank you so much for the video. Absolutely amazing, my dude. Hey y'all, Ven posted a short document today announcing that they would be deleting their Twitter and ending their push against Alex. The TLDR is Ven apologizing for their actions and explaining that that what started with concern led to things going too far, including Ven acting and speaking in a trans-misogynistic way. It's only 3 pages, so you can check out her... Basically, she freaking got outed. What a freaking idiot, dude. Ven's such a piece of garbage. Wow. Literally accuses him of freaking wrongfully flirting with someone, even though there was actual verbal consent. Wow. Talk about a hit, like, it was an actual hit piece. And I'm so glad, because I'm a big fan of Alex's content, too. Especially the Mandela catalog. Alright, yo. Chill out. What are you working at? So I'm glad to see that, like, this got resolved, especially in like, a positive manner, so to speak. But, I can only imagine the amount of stress and, like, and just freaking absolute, like, horror that Alex must have been going through all this, thinking that he was going to lose his channel. Thank you so much, Primates, for watching this all the way to the end. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell for a rainbow explosion that will go ahead and notify you every single time we go live or put out new content. Thank you so much, goodbye, and thanks for swinging by.